In 1924, Mr. Joseph Ward founded Ward Manufacturing in Blossburg, Pennsylvania. The company began by manufacturing cast iron fittings and has greatly expanded the Ward product line over the last century. In 1990, a corrugated stainless steel tubing to be used for fuel gas piping was added to the Ward product family. This revolutionary new product was named WARDFlex. Today, a full WARDFlex tubing and fitting product line is available for residential and commercial use.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name's Tim Murray from Ward Manufacturing. Today I'm going to talk to you about our WARDFlex fitting assemblies and how quick and easy it is to do. So our patented step saver fittings come from 3/8 up to 1 1/4, and then we also offer an 1 1/2 and a 2-inch system that utilizes a gasket, where the others use a metal-to-metal and a gasket seal. Assembling the fittings is probably the easiest portion of a WARDFlex installation on the job site. It takes a matter of seconds to get it done once you know what you're doing. No special tools are required, only a tubing cutter with a hardened wheel that's made to cut stainless steel. Your regular tubing cutter that's made to use with copper tubing is going to get dull, and you won't get a good clean cut like you would with the WARDFlex tubing cutter or other tubing cutters that are made to cut CSST. Other tools that are needed are a utility knife to strip back the coating and a couple of crescent wrenches to make the final connection and tighten the fitting in the nut assembly. A drill is also sometimes handy when you're assembling our termination fittings and need to fasten that to a structural member or to the floor or wall. So let's start by talking about the components of a WARDFlex fitting. There's 3 components that make it up. One is the nut, one is the retainer ring, or some would refer to it as the split ring, and then one is the fitting body, which is going to have NPT threads on it. It may come in a variety of connections. One could be a coupling for 2 CSST connections, male, female threads, and also T's, and then termination fittings where the nuts are going to have flanged components to fasten to a structural member. Inside of the fitting, there's also a gasket. The gasket is something that is placed in at the factory. It's not something that you have to install yourself. So to start with the assembly, you're starting by cutting the tubing to length. So the tubing is cut, like I said, with a WARDFlex cutter or some other type of CSST cutter. And to do it, it's just like using any other tubing cutter. You'll start slowly, make a few revolutions, and you'll just keep going until you cut cleanly through there. You do not want to over tighten and then try to turn it. What you'll end up doing is egging or ovaling that tubing, and you won't get a good clean seal because of that. The other thing that can happen is if you have a dull tubing cutter, if you're using one that's not the correct one, or if it's just an old wheel, they do wear out over time, you may get a poor cut. And as I said, the clean cut is critical to getting a good seal. So an example of a clean cut is one where you can see the corrugation is cut right in the valley. It's smooth all the way around. There's no jagged edges or anything like that. And it's going to make a nice clean seal every time. As opposed to something that's a little bit more like this, that's jagged. You can see it got partially cut, and then someone tried to kind of wiggle the tubing to get it apart, and it ended up ripping it, giving you a jagged edge. That is not going to give you a good clean seal. It could rip the gasket that's inside the fitting, and it also may not leave enough material to get our compressed seal, which you'll see a little bit later. So once the tubing's cut, now we have to strip back that coating to expose the stainless steel. To do that, we'll use a utility knife to show 4 corrugations. So we'll count back till you get to the 4th valley of the tubing, and you'll take a utility knife and very gently score that coating. You don't want to cut too hard or too deep into the product. You want to avoid actually marring or scoring that stainless steel and damaging it. Once that's removed, and you'll see here there's 4 corrugations exposed, that gives us enough material there to put our fitting components on there to actually make our seal. When using our WARDFlexMAX product, the black coated product, which is arc resistant, you do not want to expose more than 5 corrugations. The reason for that is so that there's not too much stainless steel exposed there that would not be protected by the arc resistant jacket at that point. So now that we have our tubing cut and the coating stripped back, it's time to put our fitting on there. So again, it's the 3 components to the fitting. The first component that you're going to use is the nut. That will slide right over the end of the tubing. The next component is going to be the retainer ring. So again, I said that that's something that we call a split ring. It needs to be split in half before it's used. That retainer ring gets placed on the end of the tubing, leaving the one corrugation exposed here. And that's what's going to go inside of our fitting to make our seal. And if you see here, the smaller end of the retainer is pointing towards the end of the tubing, whereas the flanged end is pointing towards the nut. That is going to interact with the nut to push this assembly into the fitting. Finally, we're going to take the fitting body, which would already be installed into a piece of equipment or another fitting in the gas piping system. We're going to install the end of the tubing with the retainer, slide the nut over, and tighten it by hand. So then once that's all hand tight, we'll take a couple of crescent wrenches, and while holding the body still, we'll tighten the nut only. We don't want to rotate the fitting body itself because that houses the gasket. We don't want to risk tearing that gasket. So we'll tighten that until this nut goes and contacts the body, the hex on the body. Once that stops, you know that you're done and the seal is going to be made. After the installations are all done, all your fittings are connected, you are going to need to do a pressure test. That's required by our installation as well as code anytime you're doing any gas connections. If the fittings need to be taken apart, it's just as simple to do. You loosen the nut, again, only turning the nut, and then taking it apart. You can reuse that fitting, provided that there's no damage to the gasket, the components aren't damaged in any way or missing. You can put everything back together. There's no need to get a new fitting for that. We do recommend that if there's enough material left in the tubing, you recut the tubing just to give yourself a fresh corrugation to crush inside there to make the seal. As I said earlier, our step saver fittings do have a dual seal, a metal-to-metal seal, and a gasket seal, as you can see on this picture. And those seals act in conjunction. The gasket would be the backup to the metal-to-metal. So in summary, our steps for the assembly is to cut the tubing to length. Make sure you have a good clean cut with a WARDFlex tubing cutter or a tubing cutter with a hardened wheel. Strip the coating back with a utility knife and assemble the fittings using the nut, the retainer ring, and the fitting body. And when you tighten that fitting down, you only tighten the nut and not the body. Once it's done, pressure test it and you're good to go. Thanks again for joining us today. I hope this information's been helpful.
For more information on our WARDFlex products and training, as well as our design and installation guide, visit our website at wardmfg.com.